Me, someone with great power, soon to be greater. But I can't spend the day having fun. I have things to do. So I'll summon the Morphing Jar to this plane and put an end to their pathetic whining.
Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm with my friend Alex, who is a mill expert. He plays it in any type of format possible. He'll play the Morphing Jar. So tell me about the deck you're going to show us today.
Well, this one isn't so focused on the FTK so much as it is just about hanging out and chilling. It'll take on an old classic. Let's check it out. Okay, so first up, starting out with the namesake of the deck, really, Morphing Jar. The whole point is to abuse his flip effect as much as possible. When you flip him up, both players are going to discard their hand and draw 5 cards. So the name of the game is to deck your opponent out. To help us get to Morphing Jar, we're going to see his friend Giant Rat. We're playing 3 Giant Rats. Allows you to tutor into not only Morphing Jar, but Shiba Warrior Taro later. Same thing with Giant Rat, we're playing Mystic Tomato. The Tomato line, 3 of these can lead to our boy Sangan. Sangan searches the Morphing Jar, can also search our walls later, or our Battle Faders. Speaking of our walls, we have Spirit Reaper and Shiba Warrior Taro. The Mystic Tomato line can end in Reaper, which is cool, and the Giant Rat line can end in Shiba Warrior Taro. Both can't be destroyed by battle, so help us wall out.
For some chill mill action.
Next up, 3 Battle Faders, same thing. They live in the hand. There's pretty much no hand destruction in Edison format, with the exception of some rare fairy stuff. So Battle Fader is a great way to just hang out behind our floodgates and not be too surprised if they get blown up. Moving on to the spells. 3 Book of Teu. This is how we're going to get our Morphing Jar face up when he's set. You want to see this as much as possible. We play a lot of recursion cards to get Teu back because there's only really 3. Later on in future formats, we get a card called AD Changer, which kind of fundamentally changes the deck. But right now we don't have access to that, so it's just trying to abuse Book of Teu as much as possible. Book of Moon. The exact opposite. With Book of Moon, we're looking to put Morphing Jar face down so they can be flipped up later again for Book of Teu. Same vein, Book of Eclipse. Doubles a little bit more defensively as well. Also another draw card for your opponent. If they commit a lot of monsters to the field, you can eclipse them a bunch of times and they draw a lot of cards. Super good defensively, and it works with Morphing Jar for the FTK. Card Destruction. Wow, this is another heavy hitter. Other than Morphing Jar, this is what's going to deck your opponent out probably half the time. You make a big push with Card Destruction, Magical Skull Activation, get it back, Card Destruction again, it's lights out. For Recursion, 3 Feather the Phoenix. So this helps you get back things like Book of Teu that you need to use again, Morphing Jar if it dies somehow, anything you know you're going to draw off the next cycle of Morphing Jar. Upstart Goblin. Consistency, obviously, it's more now like I'm playing a 37 card deck, but has interesting consistency with Feather the Phoenix. I can discard something and get it back right away with an Upstart Goblin. 2 Magical Stone Activation. This card is at 2 strangely in this format. I'm not sure why it's not at 3 or at 1 perchance, but it's at 2. We use 2 of them. Most of the time we're getting things like Card Destruction back, but it's super solid again to get back more floodgates that we'll see in just a little bit. 2 Gold Sarcophagus. The name of the game of this deck is hanging out, and Gold Sarcophagus is going to let us find Morphing Jar just as soon as we can. It also lets us find other stall cards later on in the game if the name of the game is just stall out. Giant Trinade. Boy, another really heavy hitter. In this deck, the combination of Giant Trinade and Card Destruction is lethal. Not a lot of interaction with Giant Trinade. Basically, you're going to get Solemn or Dark Bride, or that's it. They're going to pick the cards up, so super strong. Moving into what I think makes this deck really special compared to other versions of Mill, which is just the amount of frustrating stall. So we're going to play 3 Messenger apiece. This card's at 3 in this format. That's kind of wild. Really cheap maintenance cost. It may as well not exist, but it's a fun thing to do every standby phase. It really drags the game up. Next up, we have another 3 Level Limit Area B, Swords of Revealing Light, and Gravity Bind as our only trap. These 3 cards brings the total to 6 huge floodgates. They're just going to hang out for a while. So moving on to things that don't particularly matter. We do side a Trigodia, so maybe I can steal a tuner, but the extra deck's mostly just for fun. A Magical Android, a Allied Justice Catastor, a Bryanak, a Goyo, a Black Rose Dragon, an Ancient Fairy Dragon, a Power Tool Dragon, a Red Dragon Archfiend, a Stardust Dragon, a Majestic Star Dragon for fun, a Majestic Red Dragon for fun, a Drill Warrior, a Turbo Warrior, a Nitro Warrior, and arguably, actually, guaranteed our most playable card, 1 Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, just in case they leave a side draw up. Cards that maybe kind of also matter. I'm playing 2 Grinder Golem tokens because maybe they'll see my wackiness and see that a Grinder Golem might be coming and try to play around that. And also an Emissary of Darkness token. I'm not playing Gores, but they might see it. Nowadays they call that unsportsmanlike, but back in the day, that's just part of the game. Moving on to the side deck, we have 3 Lava Golem. So with our chill cards, game 1, it's a lot about mill. I don't think the strategy changes too much with the side deck. We're going now to more of a burn strategy. 2 Volcanic Queen. Less about the burn, more about the monster control. I'm trying this out with 2 Jester Confeet, which will not only bounce the Volcanic Queens, but as well as the Lava Golems if I want to. Puts the Fear of God in him. He can hide behind a lot of the stall cards. I think it's interesting. One Marshmallow. Adds a whole nother wall to the deck. Does 1,000 damage if they attack into it. Goes with the burn strategy. Another solid thing to just hang out with. One Tragodia. That's another thing that can live in the hand as another defensive hand trap. Again, the rare situations that I could steal a tuner and make a synchro, modulate its level. It could matter, but not usually. With the spells, 3-wave motion cannon. You knew it was coming. An old school classic. You're gonna wait, you're gonna get burned. Yeah, really strong. It forces spot removal on wave motion cannon where they can't use it then on stall cards. So Morphing Jar is still online, even though you're siding into the burn stuff. So it really forces them to make a decision whether or not usually they're going to deal with the impending burn or whether they're going to deal with now the floodgates that are stopping them. One MST, just a versatile flex spot. There's a lot of stuff going second that might like cook me. So I like to side it in going second to see if I can deal with anything. Last up, 2 Royal Decrees. We're going to try and stop those traps, baby. I keep the Gravity Bind in anyways because I'm probably going to deal with it, but yeah, being able to shut off a lot of those back row heavy decks, it's really important, especially game 3 if I think I'm going to be going first. I want to hide behind Royal Decree because so many of my floodgates are just spells.
Well, that was Chill Mill with Alex. Thank you for the profile. At home, these viewers, they see the deck, the card list, but I like to ask questions for them for the when they want to play it themselves. So what tips or advice would you give to the players wanting to pick this deck up?
So I mean, it's a different kind of deck. You're playing a different kind of game that sometimes can tilt people, so you might get people a little bit salty out there. It's really resource based, so you're not only trying to get to Morphing Jar. Obviously, if you open Morphing Jar Teiyu, like the combo, and you can pop off right away, that's great. But other than that, you really have to think to yourself, like, how am I going to branch out with my searchers, like with rats? How am I going to set myself up so that I don't lose in a big way to cards like Heavy Storm, so you don't want to like commit too much. It's probably going to take you a little bit to pick it up in the sense that you're going to get countered by a lot of things. You have to learn how to play around certain things. So it's really game knowledge dependent. It'd be hard for a newer Edison player to play this, I'd say, because you have to know things that are going to be stopping you. Things like Gemini Sparks, things like Hero Blasts, things like, those things. There's just, I don't know, there's a lot of counters to the deck that you'd have to be able to play around. I think that a lot of newer players might think that Morphing Jar is probably like your number 1 win condition. And I'd argue that like it gets you there a lot of the time, but truly card destruction is going to be the card that finishes your opponent most of the time. Card destruction, some decks play Serial Spell, but I choose not to because it's so powerful that you want to use that effect twice. But that's what Magical Stone's in there for. Having your opponent discard 5 twice, 10 cards, 1/4 of their deck, usually that's going to be lights out. Interestingly now, though, you're going to see a lot more decks sideboarding like Graveyard Hate because of like zombies and stuff. So having Morphing Jar hit the graveyard is scarier now, and so that's why I'm avoiding things like Foolish Burial, Shallow Grave. I know we branched out from new things there, but
that brings up a question like people play the FTK version of this beforehand. You're playing more of like a stall, play it out, maybe burn them. Why play the different version, and what is the advantages of this?
So I was looking at, because I play a lot of mill, and so coming back to Edison, I was thinking, what kind of mill did I used to play? And I played the FTK version, but looking at the cards individually, a lot of them lacked power by themselves. Things like Thunder Dragons or Dead Draws, especially if you open multiples. Cards like Dark World Dealings, they're just going to neg you one. They get you a little bit deeper, but cards like Deep Diver are just too slow. I don't know, the FTK just, it's explosive, but when it fails spectacularly. So this deck is designed to have a lot of fail-safes involved, where I still have that explosive power, but I lack the, like, I'm not going to get the FTK as consistently, but I'm probably going to mill you out more consistently than the FTK version.
All right. What decks do you try to, like, what are you looking forward to playing against? Like, when you see them flip over their opening hand and you see what deck they're playing, what deck are you hoping that is?
Anything that doesn't have like a lot of disruption. So I mean, a lot of the top tier things are gonna have like Black Wings. I don't want to see with Icarus Attack. Fairies I don't want to see because of Herald of Orange Light. That's got to be one of the scariest matchups. So I want to see things that are a little bit slower. Things like Frogs that might not necessarily have as much interruption on my turn. Things that aren't going to, like the things that have already a slower pace.
The top tier, I mean, this deck isn't designed to be the top tier. It's designed to be a different kind of game. So unfortunately, it does have a lot of weakness to top tier things like heroes, even with Gemini Spark, like I mentioned before. But yeah, I'm just trying to I guess the best kind of game I would see would be one where it's just beat down. You know, it's just a slower deck. Lightsworn is interesting, I'd say, because they do mill themselves. There is a lot of interplay with like Lila on my back row, like stall things, but inherently having to mill yourself. So that's like an interesting matchup I'd like to see. You know, when they, especially if they don't know what I'm playing, go first and they commit a lot of mills, you know, charge, recharge, Lumina, Garroth, that sort of thing. They do a lot of the work for me. So seeing Lightsworn would be a really interesting matchup.
Okay. Well, I guess that kind of led into my last question of what the weaknesses of the deck is, but you kind of laid it out in these answers here. I really like it. It seems cool, and of course, you know, everyone knows what Blackwing is like, what Heroes is like, what Zombies is like. So it's always interesting seeing a new version of a deck, especially something with an alternate win condition, which a lot of people, you know, really have a hard time playing against, like you were just mentioning. So if you guys want to play this at home, you know, there's the tips from Alex, the Mill Master. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.